Alright, so this is obviously the sequel to A Quiet Place that came out a couple years ago. And while I didn't quite love it as much as a lot of people did, I did like it a fair bit, and I especially appreciated the filmmaking and a lot of the creative choices they made. It was also one of the most unique cinema experiences I've ever had, just because of the nature of the movie, the sound design and all of that. Because never have I sat in a cinema that was as quiet as that one when things got tense. You could basically hear a pin drop, and that was honestly pretty cool. Now, as I said, I still didn't quite love it, and it more or less came down to one little problem. There were some undeniable issues with some of the logic here and there. But still, it was a very good movie, and while I didn't think it really needed a sequel, Hollywood is gonna Hollywood, and so naturally they're gonna cash in on the massive success of the first movie. Which brings me to this one, and while I don't remember the first one really getting into the backstory of the creatures, this one does give it a quick and dirty explanation with a very cool intro sequence. One that starts rather slow, on the day of the apocalypse basically, the day it all went to hell. And apparently it happened very quickly, and we follow the same characters from the first movie in this sleepy little town, as most of the town is gathered to watch a Little League game of baseball. This is also where the new character, played by Cillian Murphy, gets introduced and sort of retconned into the story. But he's another parent at the game, and as I said, things start rather slow, but I liked it a lot. And what I liked even more was how things went from slow to unsettling and ominous very quickly. And the way they handled that part was absolutely brilliant. I loved it. I mean, I got goosebumps, and yeah, I don't think they could have done a better job with it. I also loved the sound design again, and how they just seamlessly cut out sound entirely from time to time once the action got going. So yeah, no complaints from me when it comes to that intro sequence. I loved it. But after that we then jump back into the current timeline, and the movie basically picks up where the first one left off. And the story just continues without giving any sort of further explanation of what's going on. So this is definitely one of those sequels where you pretty much have to have seen the first movie. Otherwise you will probably struggle to understand exactly what's happening here. Because this one really doesn't go into the stuff that happened in the first movie almost at all. It doesn't tell you what happened, and it doesn't explain the creatures or what's going on with them. And to me that's a great choice and uncharacteristic of a major Hollywood production. Because how dare you alienate new viewers like that? It's very disrespectful. But this one doesn't care, and I love that about it. But once again, I have to say, I didn't quite love the movie as a whole. It's most definitely a good movie, I loved things about it, and it's a very solid sequel. But there are at least as many issues with the logic here as there were in the first one. And when it comes to the overall story, it's alright, it works, but it's not all that phenomenal. And it sorta introduces certain elements to the story that then kinda gets brushed over briefly, like it's in a hurry. Now, the positive of that is of course that it makes for some tight pacing, and this is indeed a very tight movie. On the other hand, it also ends very, very abruptly, and there could be two reasons for that. One, they just didn't know where to take it from there, so they just called it a day. Or two, they're planning on another sequel that's gonna pick up right where this one left off. And after a quick Google, option 2 seems to be correct, because part 3 already has a release date in March of 2023. Which I guess is fine, and I'll most likely watch it, but the ending here did feel a tad bit jarring. Now, with all of that being said, I do feel like they need to spice it up for the third one. They need to come up with something to add some layers and dimension to it. Because the story here is really running quite thin, to be perfectly honest. It was already very bare bones, and with this one they sorta even wrapped up what they were currently doing. So yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic about the third installment, and I liked this one a fair bit. Which means I'm more or less leaning towards giving this one a high 7. Boop. And if you've seen the first one and liked it, I would definitely say check this one out. Or you could also not do that, after all, I'm not your dad. But hey, what are your thoughts on this? Have you seen it? Did you like it? Let me know. And if you enjoyed the video, maybe give it a thumbs up or sub to the channel, because that would be fantastic.